Hey everyone, it's Donna here again, inviting you to today's self-love reunion speaker, and I am super excited. First, I invite you to hit the subscribe button, and just to remind everyone, this self-love reunion was put together because 1 in 2 women across the globe actually have more self-doubt than self-love. This reunion is here to help transform and help people get into that space of deeper self-respect, because love is the most powerful force in existence. I'll see you on the inside. Well, hello everyone. It's Donna here again with the Art of Self-Love Reunion, revitalizing the human spirit. And today I am super excited. I have a guest here from Romania, which I'm really excited about. Liana is a certified sexological bodyworker, a somatic sexuality professional, and holistic intimacy coach. Liana's mission is to help people expand their understanding of sexuality through knowledge, technique, and mindful practice, truly rethinking our relationship to pleasure. Her motto is, when we grow in sex, we grow in personal power. Liana offers a safe space for authentic sexual development to impact all areas of our lives. She empowers her clients to own their sexuality with integrity, love, and compassion, which in turn will slowly and gradually transform us. And last but not least, I will just add that the greatest gift, and again, my opinion, these are my words, that she offers her clients is in the process of true transformation. That space where I accept ourselves in our true sexual authenticity. Thank you so much for being here. It's been its own journey for the two of us to be able to connect like this, but I am super excited to have you join me here.
Hi, Donna, and hi, everybody who's watching. Yes, it's been one ride, let's say one heck of a ride to get here, but I'm happy that we're doing this.
Yeah. And I have to share, as I have with many of the speakers that I'm speaking to in this whole self-love journey, as people will slowly learn about themselves, when you create these things, it's because we're on our own paths to deepen, right, areas of our lives, whatever it is. So when I came across your work, and I've come across your work now for a while, we had never connected because, like anything these days, you can watch people and whatever. But I really connected just first and foremost in your style and your approach, because for me, I could resonate right into you have a pureness about wanting to share this information, because I think truly you come from a space of healing wounds, and we're going to get into that a little bit, and that's not to scare people, but sexuality is such a big topic, and then love is layered into sex and all of this stuff. So it was really important to be able to connect with you and really just have you share your voice with some of these, with this audience, and wherever this is taking us. So I'm going to just ask you some questions and you can delve into your work. I think probably first and foremost, which I've asked most of our speakers and mentors and guides, is what even brought you to this space in your own journey, right? So if you can maybe start there, then talk about this holistic intimacy coach, because I think for me, that's what I love, and I will love people to embark upon more. So as you wish, please.
So consciously, it began in 2014. Less consciously, it began earlier. But before I became conscious of this search, so I was intentional and verbal about it. That's what I mean when I say consciously. I was simply happy with my work. I was an environmental activist in Romania, Southeastern Europe, cleaning up littered trash in nature, planting trees and building afforestation movements, building an NGO, building a team, scaling my, how do I call this, civic activism. And in my personal life, I was simply seeking for the matching man for me to live a beautiful story with, but it just wasn't coming. And I'm speaking like over 10 years of unhappiness, unrequited love, suffering until in 2014, it actually went even worse. It turned into what a therapist later coined or called as a abusive relationship. I didn't know up to that point. In my mind, abuse was rape, and that was it. I didn't have that much knowledge there. I did want to explore, but not in the negative spectrum. But turns out I was, for whatever reason, just not wanted by the men that I wanted to. And when I ended up in therapy, because I didn't know why I was suffering that bad, and the therapist told me a little bit more about abuse, interaction, boundaries, and so on, I told myself, okay, I really wanted to learn with somebody in a relationship, but for whatever reason, I didn't understand at the time why. It was just not possible for me. So I said, I'll have to learn in a different way. So I started reading books. I started watching YouTube interviews at the time, all of them foreign. Like my country, in that time, it was really sexuality, sexual growth was not so widespread or common. And I came across a book at a certain point. It was about intimate massage. And at the end of the book, the author had put a link there about sexological bodywork. And when I clicked on that and saw the site, which is like somebody called it a very dinosaur age site, some of my colleagues that were already certified, but still I read through that site and I was like, oh my God, you could actually get certified in this? Right. Sign me up. Whatever it is, sign me up. I want to go there. It took a while for me at the time to raise the money, aside from everything else that I had, to pay for my certification. I had some hiccups along the way and I had to switch countries. But in 2018, I finally got certified as a sexological bodyworker. And I really want to say that this certification was initiated in 2001 by an American. Joseph Kramer is his name. And this is an American certification. It applies the principles of somatic coaching, meaning everything that pertains to the body, physical processes, and how you show up in your body, or in our very wooden terminology, we say embodiment. Some people in the field know this term. General audiences might not know. When you speak about embodiment, they might be like, what is that? Right. So basically how you show up in your body and how you express yourself to yourself or in relation to others, in not just engaging sexually, but expressing yourself in pleasure, in your senses, feeling into situations, any kind of situations. So that's somatic coaching. And how you find your joy and your fulfillment and your expansion by being fully present in your body. And right now, basically, that's what brought me here. One thing that I'd like to add also is that when I got certified, in one of the intensive modules, one of our teachers told us, you've been here 10 days. It was really intense. And we, in all honesty, we barely kept our clothes on. I didn't understand why I brought my clothes with me. I was like, why? What's going on? And we weren't having sex with others. There were no orgies. We were doing various techniques and we were paying attention to our bodies, understanding about boundaries. It was just that we didn't wear that much clothing. Right. Yeah. And at the end, one of our teachers told us, okay, in these 10 days, you've been through a lot of techniques, a lot of situations, and in normal, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, life, this would be the equivalent of 10 years of growth. If you go back home now and you don't change anything, absolutely anything in the way that you go about your life and your sexuality, chances are that the inertia of your life is so big that it will draw you back where you were. So when I came back, I told myself, okay, I really do not want to go back to that. I didn't make all that effort for nothing. Right. So I told myself, okay, what do I know to do best? Build projects, build community. Right. Then I'll have to build a community in my country around sexuality growth. And I started. And 6 months later, it did come at the cost of my old work. I was the founding president of my NGO. and the NGO was under the high patronage of Her Royal Highness Princess Margarita of Romania.
Okay.
Our royal family is linked to the British royal family. This was no small NGO or endeavor, and several sponsors and several colleagues started to express worries and doubts. What is the president of our NGO, with all these titles and everything, what is she doing talking about intimate massage, orgasms, conscious sexuality, growing sexuality, boundaries, whatever, communicating and intimacy?
Wow.
So I went through a lot of several years. I did go through a depression because I didn't want to quit that work. I wanted to do something aside from building environmental projects, and in my head those two were combined. You can't be sexually fulfilled but have an unhealthy environment around you.
Yeah.
And in somatic coaching, a lot of the techniques actually ideally involve the person being taken into a natural setting, because when you are in nature, you naturally expand. And some people, not necessarily in the somatic coaching realm, they speak of nature as medicine. Your soul feels differently when you are outdoor. You can't be in pain and trauma in anything, unless a wild animal attacks, but that's a very exceptional case. So yeah, to me, those were linked. Sadly, to many people around me, and still to this day, almost 5 years later, this isn't so common still. I'm still building like the market, quote unquote, here. People don't really understand what it means to develop yourself in sexuality. They associate it with pornography, with prostitution, with God knows what, but not coaching. And yeah, so that's my story.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, I'm like, wow, thank you, and thank you, because you've shared lots of, there's so much truth, and I think that is that's that first even core part for everybody that's going to watch something like this. When we get to that space of seeing our own truth and our own vulnerability, and I laugh and nod. I mean, I honor so wholeheartedly what you do. I've gone through a divorce. That's years, but I'm like, I know what I'm still holding. So when you talk of trauma, things come in so many various different ways, because again, like you, it would be, okay, if I wasn't raped, that wasn't trauma. And this is not derogatory to anyone. It's saying, how much are we aware? You're in a space of educating, coaching, trying to change something that, here in Canada and the States, we sometimes have maybe a little more expansive awareness, or we think we do. And then again, it's like anything in your own small community. So, wow. Okay. That just started this off in a beautiful direction. Okay. So now I have to go to the space of, let's talk about, because I think it's funny, when I actually first came across your work, you were actually speaking to a male audience. And I don't know if you always spoke to a male audience. I didn't delve fully into all of your work, but I know that you certainly do work with men. You work with women. So you do one-on-one stuff. You've worked with groups or in events. Let's talk around, because those are so big, right? And again, I did some I'm going to use sexual healing just from a space, except where I would often stop gap was this derogatory element that came to it, and not the true respectful okay. And learning at the same time, men are taught by the same mothers and fathers as women are. So we're imprinted, and yet men, of course, have gone down this different direction than women do, because that love gets wrapped into. So let's talk, and I'm not sure where this will go, and it's all good. So let's just talk about men and women, because this event is not just for women. It's for the human race, shall we say, and all people. So let's talk about that, and a little bit about the differences between men and women, and very much the similarities.
Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to clear up the audience part.
Yeah, please.
There's a very funny situation with my social media. So on YouTube, I have almost 80% men audience, and that's what the analytics show. Right. On Instagram and on Facebook, I have over 60% women. in my newsletter, also over 60% women. When I taught on Udemy, I had more men students. Udemy, the mainstream
Yeah,
e-learning
yeah,
platform.
I'm familiar.
And so I'm not yet sure how to juggle with that.
Right.
Most of the work that I do, though, I prefer to channel it towards women,
Okay.
partly because I'm in a woman's body. And some of the techniques that we did learn in our training for both men and women, they do have particular, like, they have a lot of traps there. And I tend to, because I dislike it when men show up and they start preaching in a certain way to women. I've had this in some events that I facilitated. I've had both men and women speakers, and I've kind of seen how people started to get to butt heads with topics around women's menstruation, men having an opinion on women's menstruation and what it meant, and then women saying, "Whoa, wait a second, what do you know about that?"
Right.
And or men speaking about how women can grow their breasts naturally or orgasm better. And I know that although I tried to stay in a very balanced place, like understand everybody, I too got triggered when I heard a man telling me, well, me as in one of the audience
Yeah.
people, preaching to me in a way about my body, my menstruation, my orgasm, my breast, and so on. So that's why I really am very careful and sensitive about that. I don't want to cross this boundary. Whenever I work with men, I am super, super careful to make them aware of the fact that there are some traps there. But because I have never been in a man's body, I can only mentally and intellectually understand them. But I've never even come face to face with them because there's no way I can do that, not from a woman's body.
Yeah.
So I do have men seeking my coaching services. And with them, I try to start when if they ever want to work on premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction, then I tell them, okay, that is not something that I can help you with because there are some traps there and I don't want to risk anything. And I always guide them, I refer them basically to a male practitioner that I've found in my country. And I told them, okay, this is the safer way. This is a man, he understands better with these topics or with sexual continence because a lot of men want to practice sexual continence.
Right.
And again, there are some traps there. And I did have partners in my personal life and then in my work life as well that have shared some of their, well, predicaments or even shortcomings on this path. And I became extremely conscious. Okay, you don't play with this. And I'd rather refer men for those topics.
Well, and
But if they have, sorry.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. If they seek to improve their relationship with their wife, communication, if they seek to hold space, meaning provide a more beautiful atmosphere for their partner, or try to figure out what best way to communicate so that they don't trigger their partner about their desires or their needs or their need to explore and bring in novelty in their intimate life, I can definitely work with them on that. So, and of course, everything that pertains to embodiment, meaning how they show up in their body, as in connect to it, express, expand their awareness of their body, and how this translates into their behavior from then onward. And with women, the predicament that I have is that I mainly have women from my country. And women from my country, I'm not sure what it's like in Canada or in any other part of the world, but women in my country are extremely, extremely quiet when it comes to expressing themselves in public, or commenting, or in women's groups. It does take a while until they start talking and sharing. And so I have a very quiet, where in my Facebook and Instagram, the community is mainly women and it's very, very quiet.
Okay.
And
Well,
that does,
go ahead. Sorry, I think there's a little tiny gap, but that's okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
and that does show up in also in the, when I had mixed events, both men and women, whenever it was events about talking or conceptual things, I had more women, just more quiet women. Whenever it was events about exploring, massage, touches, and that's about it, basically. And it was mixed. We had more men showing up than women, obviously, because they wanted to experiment. They wanted to get their hands on somebody else.
Right.
So those were very delicate to navigate. And essentially what I've done, I'm not doing mixed events anymore. I'm doing only events for women. And for men, whenever a lot of them are on my YouTube channel, and I address a lot of topics towards them because that's where they mainly are. And for women, I have the women's practice, which I also have on my site.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the atmosphere there is different. Though there aren't many women, as opposed to what I wish there were, that show up in my live events. Whenever they show up, they do stick to the practice and they do feel the difference. I mean, we actually do the practice.
So I guess maybe to clear up, I'm not sure that I should really speak on behalf of Canadians or Americans or whatever in terms of, because I think that comes in circles, right? And you sort of do get in these circles. Now again, I've engaged myself in some different women's groups whereby you can speak and share. What I like though is how you distinguish and how you respect the fact, you know what, you're not the expert in that. However, you are looking at the emotional side and the tactile, the body, the embodiment. And I understand embodiment, and I think that's why I love it. But I think that is always that goal, right? To say it's a pure embodiment. So let's go to a little bit of maybe some practices, but also intention, because what you speak of, I mean, so much of your work is the intention side of it. It's what it is in my practice, in probably every single one of the coaches that I've had, because when people are understanding what intention truly is, that's where it's going to take them further, right? So you're speaking consciousness, just pure awareness, personal development, growth, all of this stuff. So yeah, maybe speak a little bit on intention and how you bring that in. And
so whenever somebody either joins an event or does one-on-one coaching, they usually come because there's an issue there that they want to solve. And if in coaching, so one-on-one work, it's very easy for me because I do send them a 5-page intake form where they have to write down everything that they're comfortable writing down so that I get a better image of their context. In events, I don't have that. In events, we gather with the group, and basically once the opening is, we open the circle, I invite everybody to share, okay, what brought you here? And I do challenge them to speak it out loud. For some, it's not easy. For some, the events or the one-on-one coaching is the first time in their life, adult lives, I'm talking 30 plus,
yeah.
that they've spoken so much about sexuality, and that is mind-boggling to me how that can exist.
And that goes from even knowing their body parts, right? Let alone the act of, like, is it a whole encompassing thing? Or is it?
Well, when we talk about reflexology and the reflexology of the genitalia, women's genitalia and male genitalia, yeah, that is an entire ocean of information there. But so in the practices that I do, it's mainly around pelvic floor practice where we use various accessories. And the point of that is to increase sensation and awareness of what is happening there, and to also work on dexterity and relaxation also. The fact that the vagina is a muscle, many women, it's new. The fact that they can start to make various movements and feel different things like pressure, texture, movement, all sorts of other exercises that we do, that's new. That's where it comes, that's where the novelty is. When they start to think about, okay, I can do more things with my vagina than I thought. And I can feel in various ways, and I never even sat to think about it. So when you bring awareness just to the pelvic floor and then the rest of your body also, it just opens up a lot of information, first of all, for you that is just new. For somebody that never spoke. Some women never sat self-pleasured in front of a mirror just to see themselves. Some women never looked at their genitalia, so with a mirror. So basic things you would think. Well, so all of that is new to many women still. And again, I'm talking 30 plus years old women.
And I think a lot of women, and again, and this is a big reason even having this conversation, it's wider spread than we think. There are certainly people who would say, well, that comes from, the age-old men in control and women never had to say. I'm not going to go down that path. That's not what this is about. It's to truly say we're in a space and time where we have the capacity to empower ourselves in a different way, right? So that, and which is why someone like yourself is able to build wherever it is right now, but to build something that is so key. It's a part of us, right? And when we neglect it for so long, so many years, which is so much emotions, right? Like the body, let alone all the emotions, we're forgetting how intertwined they are. That's this awakening. You want to talk about awakening or enlightenment or expansion? It's like we're only learning what this vessel is really all about, right? So intention. How do you help people set an intention? Do you help them? Do you ask them from that information that they brought, or?
Well, I basically ask around, okay, what brought you here, and what is it that you wish to get after 2 hours or 8 weeks or 6 weeks or 2 days, 3 days, depending on where they show up. It's either a practice group or a retreat or coaching, whatever it is. So I ask them these two: what brought you here? Where do you want to be, ideally? And I encourage them to just speak out. There's no right or wrong answer, and it's not my place to tell them, oh, that answer is not good.
No.
That's the worst thing that anybody would do. So no. And then they gradually become aware of the fact that whenever we work, I invite them to set an intention for just that moment. So intentional moments, intentional events, intentional processes, intentional retreats, intentional online programs, because in my online programs, I also do that. I facilitate some of the courses that I have on my site. I facilitate with the invitation for them to become aware of what intention they have for the video that they're watching and that I'm guiding. So that's the first thing. And it's always like, I don't want to bring in my information and my knowledge, because I would be basically overwriting on them, and that's not good. They need to be uncomfortable even with the I don't know. And I remember I did one video last summer. I worked with a woman client in just individual coaching, where we worked around the I don't know. And I really had to let her stay in that really uncomfortable and extremely annoying place where she didn't know. And the fact that she did not know something, I just asked her something, and she went through all those emotions. Like, she was scared, she was laughing, she was annoyed, she was irritated, she gave up. Your emotions go like this, and it's exhausting. But I told her, okay, you need to be with that I don't know. I'm sorry to do this to you, but imagine that you're going to go about your life and something happens in your intimacy, or maybe just in your relationship, even much broader than the intimacy part, and you don't know something. Okay, you got to be used to, at least to a certain degree, to you not knowing and not freaking out about all the shit that you go through, because I won't be there, and nobody can say to you or impose on you in a way what you want to do or where you want to go from there.
And I think from your work, it's in that space. We're talking intimacy, this you space, right? And that authenticity to ourselves, because a lot of times if people come into it expecting the partner to give them what they don't know that they have, that's a big aspect of what you're opening women, men, if they're listening, whatever, into, correct? Right?
That is also a big pressure that they would be putting, because basically when you don't know about your body, but you expect your man to either to know or to know how to find out. And I did have some people on my Instagram channel. I did ask women how they explored and how they got to know themselves, so that they ask their partners then for specific things, what they like, what they want to explore. And I remember at least one woman answered she never explored herself and she doesn't want to do that. She lets her partner do that. Several men, this was through a story poll, so nobody saw who answered, they just saw the answers. Several men reacted like gasp. What is that?
Oh,
That is the worst thing possible. I remember I had a man from, I don't remember if it was Italy or he was an Italian established in a different country. The idea is that he wrote and he said, I can so relate to those men who are like going bonkers right now, because he was going through that with his partner. She did not know a lot about her body and she didn't know what to ask. And he was just disoriented. He wasn't used to dating women who didn't know anything about their bodies. And that's where he also had to face his well, just not knowing how to go about, she doesn't know, okay, but how do I help her figure out? He did not know how to do that either, because his partners previously, they had already explored and they knew how to give some guidelines or some suggestions or something. In this case, they were both so those are challenges. And not knowing, okay, we don't know everything, but not knowing anything is not a good, like not knowing anything about our body, how to ask, not knowing how to process, something that, like, you're exploring something new and you don't even know how to manage yourself, and
but
when you're surprised, when you're challenged by something, that doesn't help either. Like, there are some things that you need to learn in a positive way, like some of your personal resources. But that's also a process, and that's the toughest one to do. In group events, that's even harder, but in one-on-one sessions, it usually comes down to just small tests, like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, where they go crazy with I don't know, and then it gets easier from then onward.
it's well, there's so much. I look, even so, I'm gonna use religion. I don't need to use a choice of religion, but I'm like, there's definitely religious or religions out there, right, where you don't talk about sex, you don't, right, like, so that's a big imprint. There's all these imprints that we're given, right? And where do you navigate? There's something beautiful though that I must, because once the world starts to see this beautiful thread around your, you are creating this reality, right? Whether that's from this intention, but it's also from the pure aspect that if you don't know, you're going to get somebody who does know the exact opposite, which could freak you out to say, what don't I know? And then you think, oh, and then you walk away from that instead of that intertwining, which is what you, which is what you share, right? Which is, because we're talking levels of intimacy, not just a sexual partnership. We're talking how do you, and that's part of it, but then to get into a true loving, intimate, deep, growing, transformative relationship, right? Whatever that is. So for anybody that's watching, this isn't just about, okay, sexuality in one form. It's really to say this evolving, deepening to get to know yourself, to continue to know another, right? And to grow within that. So it's
Basically, what I want to bring here as a perspective, the sexuality part of a relationship is one of the most creative aspects, meaning it's playful, it's a resource. You can bring yourself to relaxation, pleasure, healing sometimes, and inspiration. I do mean that. Inspiration as in courage, exploration. You got to be inspired to do that. And you have to, it's easier with intimacy because somebody's there with you and they're doing the very same thing and they are as vulnerable as you are. And when you get in that vulnerable place and space and you start to play, you start to bring in novelty, you start to see yourself doing things that you maybe didn't dare to, but dreamed of, that courage, initiative, drive, enthusiasm, just confidence, you then take it outside. It, consciously or not, it's going to radiate in your social life, in your work life, in your health aspects. The way you take care of yourself, you know, as a woman, the way you embellish yourself, the way you gesturize. I'm not sure if that's a good word. The way you make gestures, the way you enjoy your food, the way you speak to other people. One of the women in my live practices said that after she took 3 series, one after the other, and in the third series, she came to one of our sessions and said, I'm really proud of myself. Lately, I started looking up. When I walk on the street, I started looking at other people in the eye. And when I go out with other colleagues from work or just friends and we sit down and eat, I actually enjoy my food and I let that show. And she was like, she didn't come for that. She was seeking something else when she came to the event, but she saw the effects in other areas of her life. I mean, she wasn't, it's not like whenever she walked on the street, she would have sex with everybody. No, she simply got the courage to look up and look at people in the eye as opposed to in the pavement. That was big. Enjoying
That is,
food.
it is big. It's the small, it is those true small moments where we notice in ourselves, right? And it's like a little more, but you're inviting everyone into that space of resting in it, because through the play, which is how you can rest in it, which is then you're like, hey, I'll do this a little bit more, a little bit more. You also encourage also that whole, you got to practice whatever, however you want to use that word, different times of day, explore what works for you, right? To even get to these spaces, right? Because otherwise, how do you know? How do you keep knowing what you want? That's where the monotony ends up sort of being, right?
Yeah. Basically getting out of your familiar zone, not necessarily comfort zone, because there's one thing that is
Right.
sex. Yeah, it's got to be, you have to be comfortable. Otherwise, you can't enjoy. You're going to be uptight. You're going to close down to a certain degree, and you can't access much deeper spaces. And that's where orgasm comes in and all the transformation that it can bring. Healing also, healing your emotions, healing wounds, sometimes healing wounds from other areas of your life, not just about sexuality.
Yeah.
That's in the book that I'm writing. I have an entire chapter that one of the women in my community on Instagram, she asked for this chapter, sexual healing. So I have one entire chapter, and then I also filmed a video reading bits of that chapter and posted it on YouTube, because I told myself healing is not just, it's not just about your sexuality. Through it, you can heal so much more and bring yourself back to a state of not necessarily purity, but wholeness and courage and beauty, and then radiate and expand from that place. Go out and just be a different orgasmic woman.
Yeah. Well, and you said early on, I mean, and I look all those words and also that natural rhythm, right? Because when you said earlier about nature, first of all, I'm a nature spirit. So however, right, everything, we're so tapped into nature. When people finally get that, it's like anything you're not sure that you can do, go out in nature and figure it out and then go back and do it. Because that's, you'll connect right back into who you truly are, right? Yeah, it's so dead. There you go. Exactly.
This is standing behind the screen. So when I'm looking at the screen, I also have this plant. It's a very succulent plant.
Yeah, all of it. It's taking the time to explore it and have the fun with it. And I'm not sitting here for anybody that's watching that Donna's in an expert zone. No, Donna's coming more and more into the expert zone, right? Because that's that growth. We all need to keep evolving in that. Now, for anybody that what you just said about this book that you're writing, I'm super excited. I was lucky enough to get a little peek at a couple of the chapters. However, the book's not available yet, but I'll keep everybody up to date on it. But I do remember, and in that the chapter around the healing wounds, that struck me because I know and I could see myself in so much of that, right? In the other chapters as well. But when you start to see yourself in any book, right? But when we understand the capacity of our sexual essence, which is the creative natural force that resides in all of us, that's when we can open and expand and right really get the juice right going in our lives.
What I call this, when you reach that place, I call this a heavier caliber love making lover and everything. So it's that requires so much from you and from the connection with somebody else. And it's not superficial. It can't be. So what I see today with a lot of people, and I feel that that's one of the videos through which you reach me, people dating online through apps and just hooking up randomly, they're missing. They're really missing on just such, it's like the tip of the iceberg, and they're missing that root, which brings, well, transformation, maturity, power, inner power, personal power. You can't get that in hookup.
No.
And that's what I see with generations, like not just my generation, but the people that are now reaching 20 or even under 20, what they're growing with is on the other side of what we grew with. We grew with lack of information. They grow with so much that they can't go deep.
They can't integrate it. It's coming so fast that there's not time to use the body and the natural. We have to slow down in order to love life, right? I know. I'm like, it's good. It's good. I don't even people. You know what? We invite. The invitation's there. I think it's choice. It's free will. The invitation is there to say people just that technology is always going to be there. Choose what you want and then understand that. And I mean, I'm a chef, so I don't even know if you know that aspect of me as much as I do this, but I'm like, I use not only all the senses, because everybody thinks that's inherent when you're talking food, but I'm like, I go into 7, 8 senses, bringing all of your entirety into it. But you use the senses from the sexual aspect and in the respectful, because this is not about the porn side of it. This comes from whatever comes out. This is who we are. And when we can start to, like, it's that longing. I think there is an innate longing in people, right? Men, women, it doesn't matter. But it is truly up to us to start exploring that and finding, again, other women, if it's in groups, to share with, because the power of the group, which I work with I do group work and some group healing stuff, but when people start to understand that power in and of itself, you start to see yourself in another. You start to exponentially shift and change. And there's science on this, right? But because your experiences, whatever that, if that's an issue even, right? That comes to the forefront. I might see an aspect of that in me, and it becomes this wow. And when we can get to that point of, sure, we might hide for a bit until we share and come into that space of vulnerability, but then that's when, wow, the blossoming, right? That is what we need. As scary as that is, because I remember some of my first group work, not around sexual healing, but just other deep group work. It's like, we need to have those people. And it's like, it's okay, right? Breathe, because breathing is big in your work.
Yes, breath work in and of itself can change not just how you feel and how you direct your erotic energy through your body or how you carry it, but I've also done breath work, like not as facilitate, but just go to breath work for myself. And I've processed a lot of emotion. And I've just reached these blissful states just through breath. And I once tried to do just an entire session of breath work. I was using my Jade Egg. And at the end, I wanted to self-pleasure from that blissful state. Just, I can't describe it with any other words but these. My energy just wouldn't go down.
Yeah.
You know, the orgasm that we sorry for that word, frequently use, like the clitoral one that is the discharge, it was just not gonna come. It couldn't happen. My energy was that high.
Right.
And I remember I had a man client once who told me, you get oxygen high when you do breath work. Yes, that's what you do. You get oxygen high and oxygen blissfulness. Yeah.
So let's talk about I mean, going back to us being here together and the entirety of this event. It is around self-love, right? Which you bring in many ways, but truly in that space. I've asked everyone, before, and we're coming close. I mean, we still have a little bit of time together, but what is that space to really get the audience into that they leave when it comes under this umbrella, regardless of where you are? How do we look at the true aspect of the inner and outer self-love in a concise maybe way, if we haven't already said it, but something that you would say, or they would be able to be like, oh, that's the intimacy coach, that's Liana.
Well, first of all, no matter if you are single or partnered, there are going to be times when you actually feel a void. And this happens in and out of relationship. Just a void and an emptiness. And you translate it as loneliness and craving for somebody else. When you start to, for lack of better expression, show up to yourself and with yourself, and that doesn't mean sexually, that just means showing up, being there, and staying with yourself until you find pleasure, because the body naturally does that. It feels good naturally. That's when you start to fill in your own hole, and you become whole, as in wholesome. You become much bigger and much better, a better version of yourself, a better emotional state of yourself, a better way of showing whatever. You're just much more powerful in those moments if you stay with yourself. And you can do that just, maybe your body's gonna take you down, like through sickness, it's gonna push you down. Okay, you need to spend time with yourself. And if there's no other way, I'm gonna smack you with something and you're gonna do that. Or you can do it in let's say in a structured way, though not necessarily the word that I'm looking for, through practice. That's what I try to keep telling at least the women that I address more in my work. Practice is a good inspiration for you. It can keep you grounded and balanced in the long run. And yeah, sure, there will be times when things will be so crazy. Like for me last month, it was horrible.
Right.
But eventually, whenever the storm is done, you're gonna find yourself and you come back to your practice. And that's how you begin to bring yourself up to the surface, bring the beautiful, pleasurable, joyful, radiant, magnetic you. That's my approach. Practice. Practice is my church. That's how I have
Well, and
my post on
yeah,
Instagram.
I think with all emotions, we often forget we want to do it when it's in the high and in the good. And it's like you have to practice through all of that, because that is when you can override and live in those emotions and understand and explore deeper, right? Because yours we're talking intimacy and with a loving partner, whatever those words. I don't want to put words for someone, but you can then, there are so many different emotions you can express within the partnership, which are going to reach you to a whole nother level. But we have to do it in ourselves, whether that comes from feared, scared, love. It doesn't
Bored,
matter.
discouraged, because
Discouraged.
you can go through a lot of emotions, and there are ways to purge that. And practice, like women's practices, that's what I facilitate,
Mhm.
is a beautiful way to do it. And you don't have to do it every single day. You don't have to push yourself if you're really down low on energy. Like there's the way that I go about this is whatever happens, just remember that when the bad things are over, you can always come back and you always grow back into your pleasurable self. I mean, your body will do that naturally. And through practice, you just help it in a very structured way. And that's the beauty of it. And you can always do it. It's always with you because your body is always with you. You are always with you. And it's the same with working out. You don't necessarily have to work out every day, but your body's going to love to work out. And bodies are made to move. And also bodies are made to enjoy themselves. And those are two things, like the physical aspect of our lives, it's part of us, that's what we're here for. And the beauty of practice, just it can't be matched. And through this, you are actually a much more resourceful partner in the relationship. And who doesn't want to have a resourceful partner? Like, raise your hand right now if you don't want one.
Exactly. And who's not mildly aroused as you speak, even when you speak of it and you get in it, it's like you have to, because it is, your body's doing it. It's naturally creating that. It's got a mind of its own, truly, truly, right? It's got a sense of its own. I think it's also in those space of the depression, the sadness, whatever emotional heavy you might have going on. It's even because you're inviting people into the body. I mean, deep into the body in many ways, but it's even, we haven't learned, if you haven't learned to even touch yourself in any form, that in and of itself during those periods can help to, because we're bringing the entire nervous system into a relaxed space, right? That goes from everything. It doesn't matter. I mean, people don't look at themselves, let alone touch themselves in any way, let alone getting the mirror out and going all the way down, right? Like that's right? No, but truly, excuse me as I but truly, there's so many practices in your line of work that brings you into that. You're coming into your body so your body can feel, right? Oh my God.
We can do one exercise right now. Like if you want 5 minutes,
do,
we can just, or actually not 5, just 1 minute. We don't want to torture ourselves. We can just, like it's called body connection.
We can do it right now.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to facilitate it on you. Body connection, and it's going to 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I invite you to close your eyes. I'm going to do that with you. Okay. And first of all, you're going to scan your body from head to toes, just to see what's there. And if there's any part of your body that draws your attention, then I invite you to focus there. And ask that part of yourself, what would you like? What would you need right now? And for instance, I got my head and I got the answer, a scratch. So, so I'm just going to do that with you. And whatever your body part is, remember to breathe deeply. And we're going to come back again, focus on the entire body. And just to close the very short connection, I invite you to speak something to your body, whatever you feel that will be welcomed. That would thank you. And when you're ready, open your eyes. My body wanted to be thanked, so, and I thanked it in Romanian.
Okay. I'll laugh. So, because anybody's going to watch this now, it's like, Donna had to peek. She couldn't keep her eyes closed. Only because I'm smiling so much when you were scratching. And I was like, I just want to watch. I'm that person too. But truly from a space, I do a lot of my own work where I can get into my sensual body. Like I feel the subtlety, right? But even for myself, so just so everybody knows what came up with Donna. So my entire, well, I will use all of my breasts, my solar plexus, my sacral, my hands, everything's just tingling, but in a pure alignment. And it was truly an invitation to just be like, we need to do more of this. Like, just continue to be in that space, because that is that power space, right? So I love it. I mean, I love it. I didn't need to go up here because I was focusing in it, but it's in that when people, if they aren't used to get into your body, it's everything. Like, I'm activated, right? But I do know how to do work, and I can call that in instantly. So it's beautiful though, because I'm I am sitting in, I will use the word arousal from a space of, if that's the right word to say, but from the power space, right? Like, to truly say, oh, I'm lit up, right? Yeah.
You're aroused in a
What?
different way. You're aroused, you're lit up, you're aroused, because your energy can be aroused from so many other perspectives, not just sexually. So
No, exactly. And from the beautiful space that we're speaking of this, and for this event, like for me, it's like, this is oozing right into this event from the entirety of, this is the essence of what I want people to get out of it. So I know everything, we imprint everything that we're doing. So it's like, this is great. So everyone, whoever's going to watch this, you will definitely, I think our time really is coming to an end, but you are definitely going to want to take advantage of what Liana is putting in the collection of at-home solutions, so that you can connect and get into that space. And you have such beautiful work, and we're going to be in touch, and we're going to be sharing her work. Thank you. I know it's this could go on and on, but because your work is quite wonderful, and I think very much needed for many people, and needed just across the planet, from that space of, we are these sexual intimate beings. Nature is here. This is who we are when we get that impact and understand it. So thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you very much, Donna, for inviting me. And thank you, and I love you to everybody watching and enjoying and taking something away with you. And remember, when you grow in your sexuality, you do grow in your personal power. So,
Or may we all grow together in some fashion. So thank you all.
yeah.
We will see you again. Take care.